that you have. So now let's talk about Cancer, which is the crab that lives in the water. Now the water is about going with the flow, but a crab is not like fish, right? A crab likes to hold on to things, and it can hold on to rock. So when the water comes, it doesn't get taken off the rock. The crab has that clinging ability of the insect science. Now, the crab lives in the water, but it can actually also come out of the water if it wants to, right? The crab always stays close to the shore, and then it can come out of the water when it needs to. And this shows really the ability of Cancer to adapt as needed, at least for a short time. You know, crabs eventually always need to go back in the water, but they can come out of the water for a long time. They obviously prefer to be in the water, they feel better there, but they can also come out of the water, and that really shows that Cancer has preferences, but they can stretch themselves and also do other things, right? And if a person has good planets in Cancer, then they'll be able to stretch themselves, right, beyond their comfort zone, right? They have their preferences, but even without, their, getting their preferences met, they still manage just fine, without complaining. When Cancer is afflicted, then Cancer won't be able to do that, right? Anytime then that a person is going outside their comfort zone, they will be really uncomfortable, unhappy, they complain, they get anxious, stressed. And they won't just be able to deal with those situations where temporarily they can't get what they need effectively, okay? The truth of life is that we are regularly sort of put into those uncomfortable situations, right? Life is just not always gonna, every day we are put into situations where we are not getting our needs met in a regular way, right? And we are required to adjust ourselves for a while until again, after some time, we can feel normal again. And an afflicted Cancer will have a hard time making those adjustments, right? Without feeling, bothered and stressed out. The crab lives in the water and it goes with the flow, but only within reason of what it needs. Right? It can't just go anywhere, right? Pisces or fish can pretty much go anywhere in the ocean, right? But a crab needs to stay at a certain depth, at a certain amount of distance from the seashore, right? They don't travel as much as fish do. And so they can go with the flow within a reason of what they're capable of. And occasionally they stretch themselves to completely different situations and be fine there too. But in general, they want to stay within their comfort zone as much as possible. And that's really the quality of Cancer. Now, when it comes to leaving their comfort zone and how far they're able to stretch beyond that, that's when Cancer clings and says, no more. Okay, so Cancer can be very tolerant, adaptable, and flexible, but there's one point where there's nothing. All of a sudden, they are gonna just stop and say, no, this is the line that I draw here, and I'm not gonna cross this line, okay? And when Cancer gets to that line, then there's really no crossing it, right? And that's just like the crab in its territory, right? The crab goes this far out into the ocean, and it goes this far out also onto the land, but it will not move a step further on the land or move a step deeper into the ocean, right? At that point, the crab is just gonna cling, with those 8 legs, and it's just gonna stay there. Now, people who have got a good Cancer, when it comes to the things that are really important to them, they just won't budge. People with afflicted Cancer, when it comes to the important things, they can just be knocked off course, right? They can let go of what's important to them. Somehow they can be manipulated, right? And then just let go of the important things in their life. But a healthy Cancer is pretty much impossible to manipulate. They can be going with the flow, be happy with what's happening, but there will be a point where they are just going to draw a line, right? And they are not going to cross that line. And that is also really what represents the quality of the moon, right? The moon is just so much like that, right? It is the feminine energy of the moon is flexible, it's adaptable and receptive, and it can go with the flow. But then there's a point where, where the moon just says, no, I am not going to cross that line, right? And the moon has that line when it's healthy. Cancer also has that line when it's healthy too. And that is actually also why the crab is actually quite of a tough looking creature. And that is also actually with, we know that the crab, of course, likes to collect stuff, and it really cherishes all, the things it has, right? It collects those things, like the crab. It brings them back into the crab hole and holds onto them and really loves to identify, with its possessions and really cherish them. But then the crab can also be really fierce when it comes to protecting and defending its prized possessions, right? Cancer is a very gentle and warm-hearted sign, but it can also be quite tough when it comes to not crossing a certain line and defending what it considers the most important for them.